haven't had a chance to actually get you to sit down, and have wanted to because we intersect on so many interesting topics.
Very true.
But since most of the people who watch this particular show are mostly coming from the paranormal field, they probably don't know who you are, and I want them to have an idea of like why this is a relevant conversation. So could you do a little introduction of yourself?
Absolutely. My name's Lee Harrington, and I've been working as a spirituality as well as sexuality educator and author for quite a while, and I've done work in my work around spirituality that goes back the last 25 years, I'd say, and am dedicated to we'll consider a Neolithic deity. So I do a lot of work on the primal side, is where I do a lot of intersection with the paranormal community, is talking about forest spirits and totemic things as compared to working with the dead, because there can be confusion.
Okay, so I remember one of the first times that we had an intense interaction and exchange, and it did have a lot to do with that particular totemic deity. So a lot of the folks who would be listening, they know spirits and they know ghosts, and I think they come to it, most of them, with the idea of, you know, a ghost is a human remnant. But once it starts getting a little bit out of that, they're not quite sure what to do with it always. So tell me a little bit about the relationship and a little bit about the language.
Absolutely. It's interesting because I sometimes trip over the language myself. For myself, that trip is because when you are working with forces that don't speak English, the dead had a base human language to work with, so their framework for understanding the world is different than working with how a mountain might understand the world, because it works at a different, literally glacial time concept. As compared to working with, there's a notion of mouse medicine and ego medicine, where a human being who is working with that mouse only sees what's in front of them, that next blade of grass, that next meal, that next paycheck.
And the ego is going to be...
looks a little more globally, and it's taken from that notion of working with those kinds of spirit energies who both can work, like a mouse can look over a precipice and see what's below, but it's not their base existence. And Bear, who I predominantly work with, is a creature that appears in almost every religion, everywhere that bears have ever been. Whether she has been animal support for a goddess, or whether she is a monster to be painted on cave walls of what to fear / what to cherish, because the line sometimes is pretty thin about what we fear and what we love. So that's where I tend to look at it, is the language of how we look at things that have a human connection can speak human thought process. Things that are in other systems speak from their systems.
Well, then the onus is trying on your part. How do you translate that? How do you? The first question I would have: are you willing or able to talk about how that first initial contact happened with you? How were you called to that?
When I was 6 years old, there was a snowstorm in the Seattle area where I was living. And I came home covered in snow, with my parents having looked for me for hours, and nobody knew where I was. And I came home cold, but no worse for the wear. And the only reason I know this story and have any memory of it is because years later, I had made a commitment that this is the path I was going to follow. I made a formal dedication in my path, and had done a journeying experience and some intense ordeal work. And I had told my mother, told my biological about this choice that I had made. And my mother said, well, that doesn't surprise me, because remember how you had problems coming home that snowstorm when you were a kid? I'm like, well, yeah. And she dug out of all of that stuff that your kids give you in there. And she dug through that collection, and there was a drawing that I had made that was me about this big and a bear about this big glowing around the whole thing. And I had apparently told her, I got home safe, Mom, because Bear walked me home.
Well, there you go.
Well, there you go. And there's a thing that I talk about a lot with people who do what I call spirit work.
Yeah.
Because spirit work is this big umbrella concept.
Oh, good Lord, yeah, it is. I mean, all of it, and it gets so complicated to try to explain it, because your piece isn't always my piece, but we all have pieces that make a whole. And if we can't talk with one another, we miss so much of it.
Very well said. And I talk with people who do various forms of spirit work, and they say, well, you know, some say, well, of course you can't choose. You either have the gift or you don't have the gift. And other people say, well, no, it's a learnable skill. And I think it's like the piano. A lot of people can learn to play the piano. Some people can't ever really play the piano. And some people have inborn skill sets that allow them to do it better.
Yes, I agree with that. Actually, like there's a few people who are just tone deaf.
Yeah.
But there are not as many people as think that they are tone deaf.
Well said, yeah. And so in my case, when I had that experience, I clearly remember, not that young, but I'd say starting around my early teens, where I had various animalistic visions. And I can see, like visually see, or more accurately in my case, taste other energies.
Yeah.
Taste and smell. But the thing that kept on appearing the most in my dreams and visions were these massive energy animals.
Okay.
And doing different things and going on different, in my child language, going on different adventures that I joined them on to go see all kinds of strange worlds. But looking back now that I've talked with people who have similar language concepts, I go, oh, I was going on these different energetic journeys into more animalistic and primal realms. So for myself, I had these experiences with a number of different animal spirits, and this is where choice comes in, because I have people who are like, well, you have to, or you don't, you don't have to do any of this stuff. I knew I was going to work with something. But the first time I ever raised my fist in anger at somebody, Owl turned away.
Okay.
She would no longer have me be hers.
That makes sense.
Because you only act in violence out of survival. Like, the owls just don't go and randomly attack things. So it became this slow whittling based on my choices I made as a human being. And by the end, Bear said, oh, okay. Other than she doesn't speak English words, so interpret accordingly to grunts, growls, and a paw on the back of your head.
Really big
Pretty
paw.
much. And I laugh about these things personally.
Yeah.
Because sometimes if I say the massive emotions that I am trying to feel inside, I can become overwhelmed in my day-to-day life. So I use humor and humor or jokes or whatnot as a way to walk between these worlds of explaining my...
See, I thought it was just me. No, I do. It takes a little bit of the bite out of some of it, especially like the really overwhelming stuff. And I know some people are like, well, you're being so terribly irreverent with that. I'm like, it's so huge. First of all, it's hard to take anyone who can't laugh at themselves, who can't laugh at their spirituality. Like they're fighting so hard to make it be really, really real and really, really serious that they, I think, yes, I appreciate humor. Not to derail you.
No, I was gifted by the concept by someone once who works with more Asatru and Northern tradition kind of stuff, that she said that people tend to confuse being serious with being solemn. And I can be incredibly serious during a joke. And when she told that to me, like, I just remember my heart going, yeah, that.
Yes.
Because I think sometimes humor is also a form of survival when you are walking in all of these different places, whether it's working as a ghost hunter and still having a day job as an accountant, or whether it's being, somebody who sees ghosts but has to also write books without having things talk to you over your shoulder.
Yes. Or at least telling them to bugger off when they're doing it.
Yes.
At inappropriate times.
Yeah.